If you want to describe cold, calculated revenge, one phrase immediately comes to mind: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Today, we use it as shorthand for brutal retaliation, but that phrase originates thousands of years ago in the ancient legal codes of Exodus, chapter 21. Reading the surrounding statutes is jarring. You'll find laws mandating the death penalty for striking a parent, mixed with strict regulations on managing slaves. Lifted out of its historical context, it reads like a barbaric manual. But these statutes were designed to address a specific, chaotic reality, introducing a set of legal mechanics that changed how ancient societies managed conflict. Just lines later, the tone shifts. Alongside those harsh penal codes are mandates of compassion. The text commands the community to never oppress a foreigner or an immigrant, citing the Israelites' own history as outsiders in Egypt. Move into chapter 22, and you find specific financial protections for the poor. It outlaws charging interest on loans to the impoverished. If a creditor takes a poor man's cloak as collateral, the law requires them to return it before sunset, simply so the man has something to sleep in. This creates a difficult contrast. A single legal framework regulates indentured servitude in one breath, while fiercely mandating the protection of widows, orphans, and immigrants in the next. Understanding this requires dropping our modern assumptions and viewing the code as a deliberate attempt to re-engineer the violence of the ancient world. We have to understand the environment of ancient Israel. This was a fragile, survival-based agrarian economy operating in a harsh landscape. In this world, livestock functioned as the equivalent of modern heavy machinery. That reality dictates the property laws in Exodus 22. If someone steals an ox, the law demands they repay the victim with 5 oxen. This establishes a core legal concept: restitution. The text gives another example. If someone leaves a pit uncovered and their neighbor's donkey falls in and dies, the owner of the pit must pay the full price of the animal. The financial logic is clear. The goal of justice in this system is making the victim physically and economically whole again. This flowchart illustrates why these extreme multipliers were necessary. In a subsistence economy, the loss of one working ox leads directly to an unplowed field, which cascades into crop failure and starvation. Repaying 5 oxen mathematically rebalances the survival odds for a family. Now, let's look back at the eye for an eye law. To gauge its impact, you have to compare it against the historical baseline of the ancient Near East, the multi-generational blood feud, where a minor insult could quickly escalate into the slaughter of an entire family. In Latin, this concept is called lex talionis, the law of retaliation. It functioned as a strict cap on revenge. It legally mandated that a punishment can never exceed the damage of the original crime. 1 eye and no more. We see a similar pragmatic approach in the slave laws of Exodus 21. In a society without modern bankruptcy laws or state prisons, indentured servitude served as a standard mechanism for a person to work off insurmountable debt. But the text introduces a severe limitation on the masters. If an owner strikes a servant and permanently injures them, even knocking out a single tooth or an eye, the debt is canceled immediately, and the servant is legally granted their freedom. By recognizing the physical rights of human property, this code placed hard boundaries on authority. It established that even the lowest members possessed bodily protections that could not be violated. As Exodus 22 concludes, the laws transition into direct divine mandates for a people isolated in the wilderness. It reveals exactly who the ultimate authority in this text aligns with. Instead of protecting the kings, the wealthy elites, or the judges, God explicitly takes the side of the absolute lowest members of the social ladder. The warning in verses 22 through 24 is severe. If society mistreats the widow or the orphan and they cry out, the text states God will respond with direct, lethal wrath. This shifts the enforcement of justice. When human courts become corrupt or turn a blind eye to the marginalized, accountability is elevated to an inescapable divine guarantee. Taken together, Exodus 21 and 22 codified a new standard for communal life. By establishing civil liability and proportional justice, these chapters turned the law into a tool specifically designed to protect a society's most vulnerable members.